I am delighted to be welcomed by Lizzi Larbalestier today. Thank you for joining us, Lizzi, in the presenter's hot seat, if you like. Just to explain, Lizzi is presenting at the NLP International Conference in May, and your topic, Lizzi, is modelling planet advocacy, which I think is something that all of us, it's a subject that's dear to my heart, and I hope it's a subject that's dear to many hearts. So do please tell us a little bit more about yourself and your presentation.
Morning, Karen. Yes, so speaking at the next NLP conference, and not a stranger to it, it's great to be part of the team at ANLP as one of your special envoys for environment and ocean. So I'm a coach, I'm an NLP trainer, and I work predominantly at the beach here in Cornwall. And over and above that, I'm an ocean advocate. So one of the elements that I wanted to explore in this presentation is modelling planet advocacy, because one of the things that we notice when we see people who are true advocates of anything is that their life and their work are really intertwined, and the way that they show up in the world is very consistent and there's an alignment. So advocacy is really interesting to me as an NLP modeler, to explore, well, what is it that makes somebody an advocate, and how is that different to something like activism, and how can we bring advocacy and activism into the way that we show up as leaders. So yes, this presentation is going to be a conversation and an interactive approach to exploring the environment and how the environment shows up in how we play out our lives, if you like, but it's relevant in every aspect of our life and work. So it's what can we learn from advocacy, and particularly for me, planet advocacy, that we can bring into the way that we practice as NLP professionals.
That sounds amazing and really interesting. So what will delegates take away from your session, Lizzi?
So one of the things that we'll explore, first of all, it's always useful to start with ourselves. So one of the things will be really exploring, well, what is it that brings the environment into fine view, if you like? What is it that brings it into our attention and out of our attention? Yes. So on a day-to-day basis, when we're living our lives, when is it that we become environmentally aware, and when is it that we aren't environmentally aware, and what can we do about that so that we're more consistent in our lifestyles? Because none of us are getting out of here alive, and actually we want to leave this planet in a better place when we leave it. Yeah. So there's that element around exploring our own patterns. We'll be exploring things like the deficit. So what happens when you actually don't get time in nature? So some of the environmental psychology around nature deficit disorder, which lots of people are familiar with, but lots of people will have experienced it, certainly when they couldn't get out and about through COVID, for example. So we'll be learning a little bit about that and exploring how that plays out in our own lives. We'll be learning from the circular economy. So I'm a real fan of the circular economy. So we're really exploring how do we ensure that the design of products and services don't create waste, and how can our learning from that, if you like, interplay with our lives. And so if you're into anything that has product design or service design, we need to be really thinking differently about how we approach that. And the circular economy has some great wisdom to offer all of us. So we'll be exploring that. As I mentioned before, activism and advocacy, we'll be looking at the differences in those, and again, the difference in those in ourselves. So we've all advocated in the past, and we've all been activists in the past, and probably are now, and will be in the future. But they are different, and they do have overlaps. So really knowing where we're coming from when we have a cause that we want to champion, or when we're wanting to influence in any way, shape or form, can be very useful for us as NLPers. Of course, applying due respect in the way that we use our skills and our tools as NLPers as well. So we'll be exploring that. And we'll also be making some pledges around our own relationship to things like fossil fuels. So touching on SDG 14, which is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal that relates to the ocean. So, and some people aren't even aware of the SDGs. So that's a great place to start as well, to explore, well, there are all these sustainable development goals that actually, if we're not aware of them, we can't really make much influence on them, or we could make more influence on them through being aware of them. So that one of those elements of awareness is a great place to start. So lots to take away, lots to discuss, lots to explore as part of the workshop.
Wonderful. And I feel it's important to mention at this stage, you know, Lizzie, the impact you've had on some of the work that we've done. So the last time we were at the in-person conference in 2019, you worked with us to make that more sustainable and plastic free, if you like. So the disposable plastic water bottles that were provided by the hotel were replaced with NLP conference water bottles. So it's those sorts of things. And sometimes, you know, I know we feel like we're making a teeny tiny little difference, but it's still a difference. And so thank you for being that advocate for this particular environmental challenge.
Well, it's huge. We can, as NLP professionals, we can have a huge influence. And, you know, many of us run events, many of us go into lots and lots of different businesses, and through the observations that we can make, that drip feed of conscious awareness can have a huge impact. And our language, and if we don't include the environment in the conversations that we have, as professional communicators, we're not utilizing our ability to raise that up in terms of people's awareness. So we have huge opportunity to make an impact.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. So Lizzie, is there anything that delegates can do before your session to give them either a deeper experience or deeper understanding during your session?
I definitely think reflecting on your own practice is really useful before you come along, and even thinking about when you're applying your NLP skills, how much environment plays a part in that. So whether you use the environment as a backdrop to a session, for example, you might take somebody outside, or whether the environment is actually part of that session. So do you actually bring the environmental elements into the conversation, or is it just a pretty place to have a conversation? That's a useful starter in terms of your nature connectedness, really understanding how connected to nature you are. And even when we as NLP professionals do that, you know, we might do a brief ecology check with somebody, really asking yourself the question, what is an ecology check? And again, how much does the environment play a part in that?
Yeah.
Us that might go through things like change personal history, quite often we're exploring, well, what if we'd had different skills? What if we'd had different insights from now and we brought those back? But quite often we don't really think, what are some of the subtle nuances around environment that could make a difference? So really, really ramping up our awareness of the environment. It is something that we explore as NLP professionals, but sometimes it can be quite low down in our awareness in terms of environmental psychology. And you know, space plays a huge role in our awareness and our consciousness and the decisions that we make and the actions that we then take. So having some reverence to environment is important, I think.
Thank you. So as I said, you've been a huge influencer at the NLP conference in the past and continue to be. So what does the NLP International Conference mean to you?
Well, for me, it's about connection. So it's you see people that you haven't seen, even if it's online, you see people that you haven't seen for a long time. So it's that awareness that we're not in this alone. We're all out there as change makers, as part of a community. So it's connection, it's sharing of skills. What I love about the ANLP or the NLP conference is that there's no status. So you'll see people who've been practicing NLP for a long time. You'll see people who maybe are newer to presenting, who will be presenting maybe for the first time, who will have real wisdom to offer. And there's no status. It's a skills sharing opportunity for us to learn from each other, to ramp up our skills, to raise our awareness. And it is about raising the bar on professionalism as far as NLP is concerned. And I love that you and Cash and the team host this event, because it's an opportunity to gain so many different perspectives from so many different professionals. So it's always an honor to be part of it. And it's great that you have environment on the agenda.
Thank you, Lizzie. And just to remind everybody, Lizzie is presenting at the NLP International Conference, presenting in the virtual weekend on Saturday, the 20th of May at 15:30 BST. So 90 minutes deep dive into all these environmental wisdom. So thank you, Lizzie. Looking forward to your presentation, Modelling Planet Advocacy, in May.
Thanks a lot, Karen.